So a friend of the channel text messaged me today, said that there's evacuation orders for the Toll Fire in Napa County, as well as the Thompson Fire in Butte County. These are both in California, around the Sacramento area. And here's the very first video that I found when searching for some plasma fire evidence. And it's only 26 seconds long, and like I showed you in previous videos, they're showing the plasma fire evidence right up front in the first minute in 2 different news broadcasts on my previous video that I made just recently. Watch this.
Evacuation orders have expanded in Butte County as crews battle a wildfire near Oroville. The Thompson Fire is burning near Cherokee Road and Thompson Flat Cemetery. Zones.
Did you see it?
Evacuation.
The fire is going the opposite direction of the wind.
Battle a wildfire near Oroville. The Thompson Fire is burning near Cherokee Road and Thompson Flat Cemetery.
You might not have heard me over the commentator. The fire is burning the opposite direction of the wind, and that's why they put it in fast forward right there. Otherwise, there's nothing to see other than a fire and some smoke. By putting it in fast forward, you can see that the smoke is blowing to the right and the fire moves to the left.
Evacuation orders have expanded in Butte County as crews battle a wildfire near Oroville. The Thompson Fire is burning near Cherokee Road and Thompson Flat Cemetery. Zones.
One more time. Your eyes are not deceiving
you.
you.
In Butte County as crews battle a wildfire near Oroville. The Thompson Fire is burning near Cherokee Road and Thompson Flat Cemetery. Zones. Evacuation orders have expanded in Butte County as crews battle a wildfire near Oroville.
Starts right here.
The fire is burning near Cherokee Road and Thompson Flat Cemetery.
Ends over here.
Zones 534, 535. Evacuation orders have expanded in Butte County as crews battle a wildfire near Oroville. The Thompson Fire is burning near Cherokee Road and Thompson Flat Cemetery. Zones 534.
And just for good measure, they show that clip twice within this 27-second news broadcast.
Evacuation orders have expanded in Butte County as crews battle a wildfire near Oroville. The Thompson Fire is burning near Cherokee Road and Thompson Flat Cemetery. Zones 534, 535, 536, 954, and 953 are under evacuation orders right now. An evacuation shelter is now open at the Oroville Church of the Nazarene on Monte Vista Avenue.
And it appears to me that when they show it the second time, at 20 seconds, they start it earlier, where it's clear over here in alignment with, I don't know, the end of the Firewatch red banner. But when they show it the first time, I think they show it starting about here.
Expanded in Butte County as crews battle a wildfire near Oroville. The Thompson Fire is burning near...
So, combined between the two, they show it burn from here, in alignment with this little red Firewatch emblem, clear over to here. This is a good presentation they've made for us. Exemplifies what I've been saying for a long time, that these fires move the opposite direction of the wind, and it's not an occasional thing. It's like every time. Like this ionic wind or electric wind, I've discussed that before, is created going the opposite direction of the fire. The underground electrical filament is moving one direction, the above ground air current is moving the opposite direction, and it happens all the time.
Cherokee Road and Thompson Flat Cemetery. Zones 534.
Here, they're going to show you exactly the same thing. I think the previous one was on CBS, and this is on ABC 10. They're going to show you a split screen on the left and on the right, and the one on the right shows the same thing, the fire moving in the opposite direction of the wind.
Chris Thomas, keep in mind the extreme heat, wind, and dry conditions are making for increased fire danger all across the area.
We are tracking 2 wildfires burning right now. You see images of them right on your screen. Crews are cleaning up the Denverton fire that sparked in Solano County.
And in Butte County, the Thompson Fire is leading to evacuation warnings and has already burned 1,600 acres. I want you to take a look. This map are making for increased fire danger all across the area.
We are tracking 2 wildfires burning right now. You see images of them right on your screen. Crews are cleaning up the Denverton fire that sparked in Solano County.
And in Butte County, the Thompson fire is leading to evacuation.
So, at first, oops, I gotta do something. It shows the fire starting right in this ravine. There's a ravine that comes down in here and then goes back up the other direction, and that's where the smoke starts, and it's blowing to the left, and by the end of the scene, the smoke and the fire have reached here.
And is already burned.
Now you see images. So much for joining us. I'm Laura Painter.
And I'm Chris Thomas. Keep in mind the extreme heat, wind, and dry conditions are making for increased fire danger all across the area.
We are tracking 2 wildfires burning right now. You see images of them right on your screen. Crews are cleaning up the Denverton fire that sparked in Solano County.
And in Butte County, the Thompson fire is leading to evacuation warnings and has already burned 1,600 acres. I want you to take a look. This map shows the evacuation.
I'm pretty sure the other one was CBS and this is ABC, and the fact that they both put it in fast forward means that they're participating in the same agenda. It is to put the visual evidence out there, just like they did in the previous videos where I showed they're putting the plasma fire evidence right up front for people to see, and that's why they both put it in fast forward. This guy, when they pan down, he's going to talk about all the charred grass area, and you're going to see unburnt weeds sticking up out of the charred ground. Another pattern that I've identified multiple times.
Turn this grazing land essentially into a wasteland. You can see some of the smoke rising there in the distance and all that black, charred, darkened grass. And you may just be able to hear the wind blowing.
And why did they pan down to look right in front of them? It is to show you this weed sticking up here. And there's a few others. There's like one here and here. I'd have to hit play to get them to wiggle again.
Over my microphone, this is an area where the Thompson fire had.
Some here. There's a couple here. There's some more over here that aren't as visible, but those are dry weeds sticking up out of the charred ground.
It's made its way through, and throughout this oak woodland type terrain, it's very rocky
and that is why the cameraman panned down to show you the 10 square foot area in front of him. That is not standard protocol. They are showing you. It started out looking off in the distance at the smoke, and then he pans down and looks at the unburnt weeds sticking up out of the blackened ground right in front of him. Here they discuss the wind and how quickly the fire grew. And she says, oh yeah, I can hear that wind in your microphone, just to give people an idea of what the firefighters are dealing with. This is part of the plasma fire phenomenon. Ionic wind or electric wind. Look it up. It's a thing. And it coincides with these electric fires, or what I call plasma fire. And that's why the ground is charred, black, with weeds sticking up out of it unburned, because the fire is burning. It's an electricity moving through the ground that chars some things and leaves others untouched. Here's where they note the wind, which is a repeated pattern over and over with these fires. People say the wind came out of nowhere. All of a sudden, it went from a nice day to 75-mile-an-hour winds all at once, right when the fires started.
On the Thompson fire, which, as you said, has burned now to over 1,600 acres. That's a big increase from the previous update of only 245 acres, just to give you an idea of how quickly this fire is growing. In Butte County, Luke Clary, ABC 10.
Yeah, you mentioned, Luke, extremely difficult conditions those fire crews are up against, and an indication of how powerful that wind is. We can hear it blowing through your microphone, that fire moving fast, a lot for those crews to keep up with. Luke Clary with...
Yeah, except the wind isn't what's spreading the fire, because as we've seen, the fire is moving the opposite direction of the wind. So sure, some things that catch fire, traditional fire as we understand it, will blow in the wind and catch other things on fire. But that's not how these fires spread. It moves upwind. Shutting off the electricity in preparation for these fires, in advance of the fire, before there's a fire, is a new trend.
Background behind that charred ground, it's these high temperatures, low humidity, and windy conditions that are perfect fire starts, and it's why Solano County is one of 10 counties where PG&E shut the power off for some residents to prevent wildfires.
They shut off the electricity to prevent wildfires. Because at the same time the wind kicks up and they say that the power lines blow over, and that's what started the fire, was a power line, a power pole that fell over and it sparked, and that's where it started. Or at least that used to be the cover story in some of these fires like Paradise. But knowing that these fires are electrical in nature, that I call plasma fire, the reason they shut off the power is probably not because they're afraid of the wind blowing a pole over, though that's what they've said plenty of times, that there's high winds, so we need to shut off the power or it's going to knock down a power line and start a fire. We've had electricity on those same power lines for decades and decades and decades, and never in the past, when the wind kicks up, do they shut off the power because it might start a fire. They know more than what they're telling, and the reason they shut off the power isn't just in case a telephone pole blows over. It's because these fires interact with the electricity of the power grid. That would be my guess.
Bonovich has been without power since 2 a.m. Tuesday, and that'll continue until Tuesday at 10 p.m., and PG&E has already declared Wednesday a PSP, Public Safety Power Shutoff Day for them. That's when PG&E cuts power to certain areas to prevent wildfires due to high wind, humidity, and dry condition.
Part of me is saying it's a good idea.
And here they're going to show you what the normie tries to make sense of based on the fires and the reasoning that they're given why we now have to shut off the power when the wind picks up to prevent fires.
Part of me is saying it's a good idea, because we don't want big wildfires, which we've had the LNU out here, we have the RAG fire, the county fire, we have the multitude of fires. But I think if PG&E was handled properly and it was managed properly, especially in the past, I think now the chickens have come home to roost, so they're having to do these things to cover their backsides.
Bonovich is headed to Lake...
Huh? Oh, well, yeah, they've been poorly managed, and if someone managed PG&E better in the past, then this wouldn't happen, but now they're having to do this to cover their ass because they, poorly managed something. It's the same power lines that have been up for decades and decades. Never before did they have to do this. What has changed that could have been, quote-unquote, managed better? That's this guy trying to twist his mind into a pretzel and perform mental gymnastics to make sense of what's going on around him because he is so ill-informed about what's actually going on, and all he has is these cover stories. After the Paradise Fire, there were people that wanted to blame PG&E, say it's their fault because they didn't manage their equipment good enough. It's the same equipment that's always been there. What is there to manage about it? Are the poles weaker so they blow over easier than they did 10 years ago? He doesn't have an answer to that. He doesn't have any details or specifics about what he means when he says it's been poorly managed and that's why they're having to do this to cover their ass. What's been poorly managed? The PG&E. Just a couple of comments I wanted to add and to cut that guy a little bit of a break. Maybe, he's just trying to make sense of it best he can. He knows that it never used to start fires when the wind picked up and that those are the same power lines and same power grid there always been. So there must be some sort of degradation of the infrastructure itself, of the power grid. And if you ask him specifics, like, well, what do you mean it should be better managed or maintained or upkept? Like, surely you have some idea what you're talking about, right? Tell me what you mean. Should we have replaced the poles? Are they getting brittle and old and they fall over easier? Is it the lines? Is it the transformers, the fuse boxes? Well, what do you think should be maintained and managed and upkept? And what do you mean? Surely you know what you're talking about, at least something, right? Give me a something. Give me something, anything. He'd say, well, I don't know how, I'm not the expert. They're the experts on how to maintain and manage an electrical grid. They should know that. I'm just saying they should have done a better job of it, and this wouldn't be happening. Because in his mind, that must be what's happening, is that over time, something has deteriorated and disintegrated, and they haven't managed it well enough to keep it from doing this, because it never used to do this. So it must just be that the infrastructure itself has degraded, disintegrated, and some of the stuff's getting old and they didn't replace it when they should have or something, right? He has no details, no specifics. He's got a foggy notion of what he thinks he's saying, but if you ask him about any details, he'd be at a loss for words. Another thing is that PG&E, I believe, after the Paradise Fire, did pay out a settlement. It was like probably, a few $100 million or something, pocket change for a company that size. And they were probably got it back in return where the state said, look, just take a fall in court. Let us fine you a few $100 million. We'll give you a no-bid contract on some work that's coming up. You can double charge us for a couple $100 million. We'll break even and you'll even end up ahead over the whole thing. But just let us put the headline out that we found out who's at fault here, and we remedied the situation. We fined them millions of dollars, so that won't happen again now. So the public's pacified. They think we found the problem, held someone accountable, and they move on and quit searching for answers because we tell them we found the answer. PG&E was found liable. And we won't hold you liable for all the people that died in the fires. It'll just be a few $100 million. And we'll kick it back to you in a no-bid contract coming up real soon. One other thing I wanted to add is that they forecast the wind is going to pick up, so we're going to shut the power off to prevent fires. I think maybe they kind of see this coming, and maybe it's that they see a fluctuation in the magnetic field. They have some sort of sensors, some sort of equipment that monitors the magnetic field, and they can see whether it's like a hole in the ozone that moves over, or maybe they see one of these magnetic flux lines getting stretched back like a rubber band. They know when it releases and it snaps back and goes boing, it's going to create that fluctuation in the magnetic field that creates a surge of ground current and start these fires. And simultaneously, when it does that, it also creates wind. And so they've always been able to monitor and predict wind. There's going to be 30, 40 mile an hour winds tomorrow. And so that doesn't raise an eyebrow of anyone for them to say, we predict there's going to be wind tomorrow. But the difference is these days when they predict there's going to be wind, they also predict there's going to be fires and say that's why we're shutting off the power lines. Now, correlation does not equal causation. When the sun goes down, the moon comes up every time. The sun going down must cause the moon to come up, right? No, they are both caused by a third factor, the rotation of the earth. Calm down, flat earthers. Likewise, when there is whatever it is they're detecting, let's just say it's this fluctuation in the magnetic field, a flux line stretching back, they know that it causes fires and high wind, but they tell you that the high wind causes the power lines to tip over, and the power lines tipping over is what causes the fire, as if it's a knock-on effect when both the fires and the high winds are caused by a third factor, the fluctuation in the magnetic field. That's the part they're leaving out and not telling you. And why they choose to turn the power off, I'm not sure, because these fires start either way. Even if no power lines hit the ground, these fires start, and they are electrical in nature. But somehow there must be a correlation, and there must be a reason they turn the power off. Maybe it's just to prevent the grid from shorting out and short-circuiting and having to replace all these transformers after the electrical plasma fire moves through. So they tell you they're shutting it off to prevent fires, even though they know that ain't going to prevent the fires. And maybe it gives the public the idea that that's what's causing the fires. So it gives them a good, two benefits, two birds with one stone. It prevents the transformers from burning out when this fluctuation in the magnetic field creates a surge of ground current. And it pacifies the public, tells them we know how these fires are starting. It has to do with the power grid, the electricity coming from within the wires that's being generated at the hydroelectric dam, okay? Not no natural phenomenon like geomagnetic induction. No. This is just the power from the lines, and that's why we're shutting it off. But either way, it seems they have a heads up, and they know tomorrow's going to be high winds, and thus we're shutting off the power to prevent fires. But what they actually know is tomorrow's going to be high winds and fires, and we're going to shut the power off for a secondary reason. I'm not sure exactly how it all works, but it does seem that they are able to forecast these plasma fire high wind scenarios before they happen, and that's why they're shutting off the power. I don't know what to make. I'm going to show you what I just spotted. Here again, they're showing the fire moving in the opposite direction of the wind, right at the point where he says, CAL FIRE is telling us that these fires are being driven by the wind.
This is called the toll fire. CAL FIRE says this fire is being driven by the wind.
Here they show you this loop over and over for quite a bit. You have to pay attention, but you can see that the fire is moving to the left while the smoke is blowing to the right. And that's why they put them in fast forward and keep showing you this. Almost all of them are putting these in fast forward. Like they got the memo. That's how you can see which direction the fire is actually moving, and that it's moving the opposite direction of the wind. And they all say, okay, and that's what they're instructed to do, is to put these in fast forward so that other people can see it. Because people themselves need to figure it out. Because if they find out that we knew about this the whole time, then there's hell to pay. We need the people to figure it out. And then when the people figure it out, we can go, oh, hey, you're right. You're onto something. I didn't notice that. But now that you mention it, it is moving the opposite direction of the wind.
All right, so at the top of the show, we told you about a fire burning in Napa County. That was a toll fire burning about 40 acres. Well, this is another fire. This is burning in Butte County. And so far it's forcing evacuations in Oroville. Here's some video from one of the PG&E cameras as far as burning near the Cherokee area. Multiple zones are under evacuation orders, and crews right now, they're fighting this from the ground and from the air. But as you've heard Tracy say, this is going to be a prolonged period of just heat and dryness. So they have their hands full there. So again, 2 fires breaking out just in the time of our noon newscast. We'll make sure to stay up on both of them for you on air.
2 fires breaking out just in the time of their noon news broadcast. They've caught this word they call something a fire complex. And it is to cover for the fact that these fires start simultaneously, like we've shown in the fires in Canada. From the aerial satellite imagery, you can see that these fires are hundreds of miles apart, and they all start simultaneously, like 7 or 8 or 10 of them. I've shown that same satellite imagery and multiple simultaneous fires starting in the United States on previous videos that I've made. They came up with this word fire complex because often these fires will start close enough to each other that you can just kind of lump them all in and say it's all the same fire by calling it it's the Butte Fire Complex, which includes these 7 or 8 or 10 different fires, and that's the Butte Fire Complex. But when they start hundreds of miles apart in completely separate counties, it's a little hard to lump them all in and call it a fire complex. And the video I made not too long ago showed 6 fires pop up within a 50 square foot area. When the firefighters spot a spot fire and they run over there to put it out. Within 10 seconds, the camera pans back the other direction and 6 more fires have erupted out of the ground in the 50-foot that those firefighters just ran over and filmed on their way to the small spot fire that they were headed to. So, from the satellite imagery where you can see giant plumes of smoke all appearing simultaneously to the micro level within a 50 square foot area having 6 fires pop up simultaneously, that's a problem. And it's not one that they're wanting to disclose to the public, but we're getting to the point where something's got to give.
You're surrounded again by the Thompson Fire. And take a look at the American flag there for some indication of just how hard the winds have been blowing up here. This is a wind-driven fire, lots of dry fuels.
All of them are wind-driven fires, and the wind pops up simultaneously as the fire starts. It's part of the same phenomenon. It's called ionic wind or electric wind. All of the witnesses in the fires in Chile, where over 100 people died, said winds came out of nowhere. In Paradise, California, winds came out of nowhere right as the fires popped up. In Boulder, Colorado, the winds came out of nowhere right as the fires popped up. This is reported by witnesses on the ground over and over and over again. These winds coincide with these electrical phenomenon that I call plasma fire, and most often it's moving in the opposite direction that the fire actually moves. A bunch of fires started in the Sacramento area about a week ago, and I've been going to report on it. Maybe I'll collect some clips of some imagery that shows more of the plasma fire burn signatures. But this one I just did on the fly because the very first thing I looked at, they were showing the fire moving the opposite direction of the wind. Here's one last wind anomaly. Look at these two flags blowing the opposite direction of one another.
Just feel how hot it is, the smoke, the smell. That's why we have our masks on right now, just because of the amount of smoke that is being put out right now, that this dry vegetation that you see here is burning. So
the one on the right is to the right. The two on the left are pointing to the left. What the hell's going on here? I don't know. Maybe it's an optical illusion. But I mean, how do you explain that? Stay curious.